Or should we get started? What do you think, Coach Man?
I think let's start.
Let's just start. Saad,
Okay.
let's not wait for anyone.
Sure. Okay. Welcome to this edition of the MUMKIN Corporate Majlis, everyone. Thank you for joining the call. And today's topic, as you may have seen from the flyer, is on procrastination, which is something a lot of us have either experienced or we know someone who is currently experiencing or has experienced procrastination. And it's also something that we have faced the consequences of either directly or indirectly. So we'll kick things off by defining what is procrastination exactly. Let's get into precise definitions here. So procrastination is the act of delaying or putting off a task until the last minute or even past its deadline. And some researchers even define procrastination as a form of failure of self-regulation systems, which is characterized by irrational delay of tasks despite that delay having negative consequences. So that's kind of the scientific definition of procrastination. And the interesting fact here is that scientific studies estimate that at least 15 to 20% of adults procrastinate, and 25% of adults actually believe that procrastination is a defining trait for them, defining personality trait. So they identify with procrastination. Okay. So would you like to add anything to that, Coach Umair, to that definition of procrastination?
Yes. You mentioned that it's an action of unnecessarily delaying things. I would say it's a voluntarily unnecessarily and voluntarily delaying things, despite knowing that this delay might cause some negative consequences.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. Right. So now let's move on to. Sorry, were you going to add something else?
No, that's it.
Okay. So now let's move on to why do we procrastinate in the first place? And that's a complex question, right? Because there are many reasons why we procrastinate. We will touch on some of them.
Saad, before we go there, I have a very interesting thing to share.
Please do.
The word procrastination, people often mispronounce it and misconfuse it. So let's see where it comes from. We all know what pro is. Procrastinus is a Latin word which means tomorrow. So if we go into the literal meanings of the word, it's putting something to tomorrow, onto tomorrow.
Yeah.
So yes, you were telling us about reasons that people tend to procrastinate.
Yes. So I was just going to say, why do we procrastinate? And as I said, there are many answers to this question, and there have been many studies on this as well by behavioral psychologists, right? And one of the reasons that we procrastinate is a result of something called time inconsistency. So what is time inconsistency? Time inconsistency means when we plan for something, right? We see ourselves in the future. We see a future person doing this or achieving this. We plan for a future self. But when we actually get into the actioning of it, it's always the present self. It's our present. We are in the present moment. It's now. And what behavioral psychologists have discovered is that the present self values instant gratification over long-term gains. So there is you could say the core challenge of why we procrastinate is that the present self is more likely to value instant gratification, right? But we must plan for our future self and push towards future targets in order to grow. What makes the present self more likely for instant gratification? There are a number of reasons for this. One of them is not being clear about your goals, having a lack of clarity. Other reason can be lack of resources. So maybe the goal that you have set is not a SMART goal. It means it's not specific or measurable. And that can lead to procrastination as well. And there are other reasons as well. Like some people have unresolved anxiety or depression, and that can also result in a vicious cycle of procrastinating. You feel anxious or fearful, you don't do anything about it, and then the procrastination comes back, and then that results in a loop. I think at this stage, it's also important to recognize that procrastination in and of itself is not a thing, right? Procrastination is a consequence. As I was just saying, it's a consequence of not being clear about your goals and plans. It's a consequence of not evaluating and utilizing your resources effectively. So if you change those behaviors, you are much less likely to fall into the pitfall of procrastination. Would you like to add anything to that, Coach Umar?
Yes, that's true. If you allow me, I would like to share a very interesting story about one of my clients who I was coaching. So this guy was in a very deeply in a habit of procrastinating everything, and that due to which he said that he suffered a lot in his job, in his home, everywhere, because he would never do anything which was required to do, and when it was required to do. So he would always say. So I asked him that, can you identify the basic underlying reason for for why you do what you do? So he thought about it, and he said the basic reason that I can identify is that I have got a lot of time. I have plenty of time to do everything. So that was kind of like a catching word for me, and we started discussing about. I asked him if he would like to explore how much time did he have and how can he utilize the time better. So I asked him to calculate the total number of hours that he had in 1 week. So he said, I have 168 hours every week where I can do a lot of things. And if I have to do something on Monday, it can as well be done on Tuesday, it can be done on Wednesday, it can be done on Thursday, and eventually it never got done. So we further explored how he could cope with that problem phase or the challenge that he was facing. So he came up with a very brilliant idea. He said, okay, let me slice my time into different categories. So one of those slices was the availability of time that he had to spend in his professional life, which meant that he needs to work in that time. So I asked him, what good will that do to you? He said, when I know that I do not have 168 hours in the week to do all the things that I have to do, and instead I only have 50 hours, the scenario will be different. And the next week when I met him, I said, how did it go? He said, I started completing 20% of my tasks on time. And eventually this improvement, he improved in this, and he's still working on this. But yesterday I had my session with him, and he told me he is doing 70% of his tasks on time. So,
interesting.
To answer your question, one of the basic underlying reason for why people procrastinate is because they think that they have a lot of time.
Is an interesting term for that. I think as someone a while ago, one of the operations directors in the companies here shared with me, and this was around the time that economy was going down. He said there's something called destructive abundance. When there's too much of everything, then it's actually bad. Sometimes less is good. I think this is an example of destructive abundance, that he had too much time on his hands, and when he started to slice it, he became more efficient. So
exactly, and among other reasons, we human beings sometimes tend to avoid different things. So avoidance of results, or avoidance of effort, or avoidance of anything might also be a reason for procrastination. There may be some, we often talk about the victor and victim mindsets. So in victim mindset, denial and excuses are very common. Denial and excuses being one of the primary reasons for procrastination.
Right. Yeah. It's pointing the finger outside your locus of control, right? It's saying that something outside of my control, I couldn't do it because of that. I can't switch my phone off because I need to receive some important message. Okay, I see Coach Nair's hand is up. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to add something over here in procrastination. In some of the coaching situations, or while I work with some of the people, they procrastinated for a couple of reasons that I may like to share here, and people may be able to relate those reasons with them. So one guy used to procrastinate, me used to put off things to be done tomorrow or the day after, and so on and so forth. Later on, after a couple of coaching sessions, I realized the challenge was the guy was not clear in what he wanted to do. And because of that, he was delaying, just delaying over and over again. And now, when I say what he did not know what he wanted to do was primarily because of his self-confidence. He had a very, very lower self-confidence or lower self-esteem. So his future options were not clear to him. And because those future options were new and he did not know what to do with them, he kept procrastination. So I'll give you the real detail. So what happened? This guy was moved in. He was a senior executive in one of the organizations, and he was given a different area to explore. Not only to explore, but also to grow further business in that area. Now, this area is something that was entirely new to this person, and because of this, or because of not having any experience whatsoever in that, he did not have a clear picture of what he wanted to do, and because of that, he continued to procrastinate for months over and over again, till the time that he started developing the clarity, and then he started feeling the pain that it was not only him. Actually, he was pushing back the entire department because of his procrastination. And then he started working on a small little steps every week in, week out, to make it a little better than before. So coming back to the point. So one of the reasons is that people are not confident about, their self-confidence is low, and especially if there is something that they're doing for the first time. So this is what I would like to add, and I have some more points to add, but later on, inshallah.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. And yeah, go on.
Yeah, so one more thing that just popped up in my mind is related to psychological safety. In organizations that where psychological safety is low, usually, and the fear factor is high, the employees may be inclined toward procrastinating things that about the results of which are not clear to them. Since the organization is not psychologically safe, they're fearful of doing certain things, so they tend to procrastinate until the last moment when things become absolutely necessary.
Right, right, yeah. Because they're afraid of the consequences because of the lack of the psychological safety. Right. You mentioned this. I see Coach Faisal's hand is up. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to share from the experience that I have working with different people who have this issue of procrastinating a lot with their action. One of the things that I found out is that they are very unclear about what they need to do next. Most of the time, they have a vision, they are looking towards the big project, the big outcome, but when they when they focus more on the outcome, they become very overwhelmed because it's a lot to do. So let's say if you have to build a big building, okay, so and you think about it, you get starting to get overwhelmed because a lot has to be done, a lot of expertise, a lot of material, and a lot of resources need to be there to start building that. But if you see, even that whole building starts with just one small construction unit. Maybe you start building a small wall and then you add more and more and more, and this is how the whole effort evolve into a big outcome. So when people don't have a very clear idea about what they need to do next and they start focusing on the big outcome, they start getting overwhelmed. So when one of the example is that one of the person, he wanted to pass an RT certification exam, and and the content of that certification was a lot. So whenever that person was thinking about it and looking at the material, they were getting overwhelmed that, okay, how I'm gonna finish this, how I'm gonna retain all this information. Maybe I will not be able to, uh, finish my studies in time for the exam. Maybe I will not be able to pass on the first attempt. So a lot of things were, a lot of thoughts were coming, and especially negative thought that were overwhelming the whole situation. And the guy, and the person was, delaying the exam registration to every other month. So once they start looking, once they divided the whole study, uh, what I can say, study project into smaller tasks, like I need to do this much every day, and I need to do certain exams by end of every week. So they were able to focus more on the next step, and that helped them in achieving a much bigger goal than they were able to do when they were not focusing on a smaller steps. So this came to my mind when you guys were talking about procrastination.
I'd like to add something here is what Coach Faisal just shared. There's something also that we can also think about this in a different way. Why do people procrastinate? The question is that their drive to delay is greater than their drive to act. So you can even assess yourself, like if what are the reasons for you delaying, and as Coach Faisal is just explaining or sharing that sometimes the project is too big, you need to break it down. I mean, that's your reasons for delaying, and what is your drive to act? Because when your drive to act is greater, then you won't procrastinate, right? So making it more attractive, easier to do, making it time bound, all influences or enhances your drive to act. So I think the drive to delay the drive to act being greater than drive to delay is another interesting way to look at procrastination. I see
Yeah,
one.
just to add, Saad, to the same
Yeah.
thing, same happens when people try to lose weight. Okay,
Right.
so when they're looking at their goal, they're looking at like losing 10, 12, 15 kgs, okay, which seems like to be a very, very mammoth,
Hmm.
and it's very difficult to take over. And when they start doing it for a couple of days, they don't find any significant uh, distance covered towards their goal. So
Right.
they start procrastinating and they start putting off things for later. But if you can divide that whole mammoth target into smaller chunks, let's say I have to lose, let's say 2 or 3 kgs per month, and that's comes down to, let's say, losing only half kg per week. So that's an easy achievable target. So if I look into that, and so it will give me motivation at the end of the every week because I'm achieving something. And in this way I can reach to my end goal by just putting in some smaller mean goals in between. So it's like adding smaller steps between your vision and where you are at this moment.
Right. Okay. I see Coach Nair's hand is up as well. Would you like to share something?
Yeah, yeah. Another thing that I would like to share. See this. Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has created human minds. They have a design. We are very good planners, but very poor executors. So what happens? Whenever we plan for something, let's say I want to do something, whether it is, let's say, planning for the department or for the team, or let's say defining the budget for the next year, whatever is the thing, right? All right. So what I do is that human minds, as I mentioned earlier, they're very good planners. Means like I can define the budget in my head, inside my head, or anything that I'm planning, project planning, whatever, inside my head. Within a fraction of a second, I can see that it's completed. Now, what I fail to understand over here is that when I'll get to work and I'll need to do or carry out this work step by step, that doesn't happen in a fraction of a second. It takes time. So that is the reason people when they think that this is something that they can do very quickly, but actually their inside head time estimates do not match the real time estimates, and because of this, things start delaying. So, I can give you numerous examples, whether it is related to project planning or quitting smoking or anything. And people think that tomorrow, because tomorrow they don't see the problems of today. So tomorrow they think they will be free, and this is how they think they will do the things easily. So one good question that I have found useful. So I ask people, what do you think will be different tomorrow that will make you do this task that you're not able to do today? And then people start thinking, oh, I'll have some more time. I'll be able to finish this project within the next 2 weeks, and then I will have the opportunity to let's say exercise, or to let's say start reading a book. So one of the major challenges, and I love to share this example, is one of the major challenges in my experience of coaching people who wanted to become even better team leads or team leaders is their ability to read books. They put off reading books, put off just over and over again. All right, so this is the book that I need to read. All right, so I'll start it tomorrow, and that tomorrow, and that tomorrow, and that tomorrow never arrives. You know why? Because they think that book reading will take place in a moment of in a fraction of a second, or very short amount of time they'll be able to finish the book. But this does not happen in reality. They need to allocate a specific time to read the book, and they sit down with the book. Maybe they, as Brother Faisal also mentioned, small little tasks, step by step. Allocate some time, let's say 10 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, or whatever is the amount. Let's say 2 pages a day, whatever. It has to start somewhere, and then it progresses. Now there is something which is important. Generally speaking, people don't like reading, and you will find every other person being able to watch the videos, listen to podcasts, but not being able to read the books. So this is a very common issue. So coming back to the point, this habit means to overcome this needs a conscious realization that there is something important than to listen to your likes or dislikes. Means reading books, if we are talking about reading the books, that means we are talking about specific focus. So just a conscious realization will help them read the books and spend some time, allocate and spend some time in reading the books, and this is how their leadership will start developing further. So I hope I was able to put my point across. Thank you.
Just to add to what Brother Nayyar has just said about being a good planner, but still I believe that we normally underestimate or overestimate things based on our moods and our skills. So sometimes when we are underestimating things and we start taking on that project or task, so we get overwhelmed very early. But on the other side, if we overestimate something, then it seems very easy, and we say that, oh, we have a lot of time, I can do it at any time in the future, I have the whole week with me. But in the end, we procrastinate because of that, and until the last day, okay, then we find ourselves in the same situation where the underestimate people have been, like they have too much to do in too less time. So doing a better time management and allocating the right time and coming up with the right plan is very important. And another dimension about procrastination is that the interest and your ability to do the task. So if the task that you want to take on is not challenging enough, so it means it will bring boredom to your life. Okay, and we are not very much into those tasks which we think are too easy or not helping us in moving forward, and they are just more of a clerical work. So if the challenge is not good enough, then again we procrastinate because of boredom. On the other hand, if the skills are less and the task is too challenging, then it seems like very overwhelming, and again we try to procrastinate. So the challenge should match our interests and capabilities to make sure that we take on things and we keep ourselves motivated to do that for a longer period of time.
Thank you. Let's take some questions, Saad.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, there are some comments as well. So Naseem has asked the question, does journaling help? Okay, that's an interesting question. Given that journaling's purpose is to establish some clarity and people do experience greater clarity when they journal regularly, I would expect that it should help with procrastination, and that if you have a more clear vision, then your drive to act will be greater than your drive to delay. But in my humble opinion, journaling alone, I think, cannot fix the problem. Like if someone is facing procrastination regularly, then journaling alone is unlikely to cure it. It probably needs some more behavioral change, and really assessing and having some plans and minute actions, as we have been discussing, to to get going.
Yes, and to add to Saad's point, journaling combined with proper planning and result-focused thinking would definitely help.
There's a question. Sorry, go on. You're adding
Yeah,
something?
let's say Sayyid Shahzad Nasser wants to say something.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Like,
I always delays my task and procrastinate to my task, but there is none of the reasons which are told here or which are discussed here from that one. Even now, I am procrastinating one of my important tasks to listen to this Majlis. I leave that task and come to your session, but I don't know the reason for that one. But none of the reasons which are discussed here. I'm always confident about my work. I always procrastinate or delay to the task which I have done before many times. It is one of always it is a part of my duties which I used to delay.
So what has been the reason, in your
Not the
opinion,
part
if
of
we
the
did not
vision,
discuss?
not the parts from the vision or from the some future plans. It's from the duties.
okay, so what do you think is the primary reason for you to procrastinate
I
something?
don't know the reason. If I know the reasons, I can discuss it here, but I don't know the reason for that one. But I always used to procrastinate that task for nothing. There's nothing, but I delay it always.
Okay, what if
I said, okay, I'll do it. I'm doing it. Okay, and there is always what we say. There is a alarm for that one, and there is always a somebody's reminding me for regular reminding for me for that task. For example, if there is something I have to bring it to Mr. Umair, I put it in my car. I see it daily, but I didn't complete that task to bring it to Mr. Umair. I see it daily that I have to bring this to Mr. Umair. I write it, I see it daily, I put a comment, and the thing is in front of my eyes, but I didn't do that one.
That's very interesting.
I have to do some, complete some job relating to my business or to my work. For example, I have to raise the VAT. I said, okay, I know I have to raise it. I have done it many times before. Every time I'm the one who raised the VAT of the company, but I always procrastinate that one. I don't know the reason for that one. Can you please discuss about that one?
Umair, can I address this?
Sure.
Right. Okay. See, I would like to relate this to one of our participants. Does journaling help? Let's talk a little bit about journaling. Journaling, in a standard definition, it means self-reflection. Means you talk to yourself about yourself. So when you talk to yourself about yourself, that means you'll be able to figure out something about your actions or about your feelings, emotions. That means that you were able to identify that under what conditions you do what, under what conditions you behave in a certain way, and so on and so forth. Now, this self-talking to yourself will elaborate a lot of things about you. This requires that you put your phone away, put your laptop or whatever away, just get disconnected, and just should have a paper and a pencil, and then you write. Then you talk to yourself and you write. This will give you a lot of revelation, I would rather say. So this addresses Shahzad Sahab. If I may you, how much time do you spend by yourself where you are not connected with your mobile phone or with the outside world, and you just talk to yourself in a sense that you analyze and you explore yourself. Same question is to Naseem, who wrote, does journaling help? So this will help you identify not only your patterns but also some future actions. So this is one thing. The other thing is that, guys, we need to understand that we also have interest in our self-interest or our self-inclination. So you need to see, are we procrastinating or postponing everything that we do? Or is it some specific area that we always procrastinate? For instance, let's suppose I don't like exercise, let's suppose, right? So maybe I always procrastinate exercise, but exercise is something, that means exercise is something that I personally don't like, but I'm good at and many other things, right? Sometimes what happens is that we continue to beat ourselves for something that we do not do rather than appreciating ourselves on our accomplishments on the other side, right? So you need to see your strengths as well. So I conclude here, 2 points. Journaling helps you know yourself better. This is one thing. You will find many patterns. The other thing is you need to identify what you procrastinate, and what you do not procrastinate means what you are actively doing or pursuing. Right? Thank you.
Excellent addition, Nirvai. So let's take some more questions.
I would
Nirvai,
I would like to add something to Brother Nair's point. One of the reason we procrastinate for no apparent reason is that the consequences are not very clear. So let's say if we ask the same brother that how many times he has missed his flight in the morning. So normally when I ask the same question to one of my coachee, so the person used to procrastinate or not for certain duties, for certain responsibilities that were related to the religion. So I asked the question, so how many times you have missed the morning flights in your life? And they say nothing, never, we never. Why? Because if we miss the flight, we won't be getting on board, and the whole plan will sabotage, and we will have consequences in terms of our planning, in terms of the financial loss that we will incur because of not getting on the plane on time. So that's why if the consequences are apparent, then you tend to more towards the action side, and you make sure that you don't miss on that. But when the consequences are not very apparent, especially in terms of like religious duties, you don't get reprimanded or rewarded instantly, so you tend to procrastinate on those things, right? So what to do about it? If you can relate those things and you can tie it up with some apparent and instant gratification rewards, let's say that for the one who are missing on exercises, if they tie it up with some kind of a reward, that I won't be having my dessert. Let's say I have a plan for dessert one time a week, and I won't be getting that dessert on Friday if I don't work out for the 5 days straight. So in this way, you will be able to see that you will get a consequence in the end. So you will keep yourself on the schedule, and you will be more motivated to work out on daily basis.
So
I wanna-
adding to what,
Yeah,
sorry.
go on.
So adding on to what Faisal, I guess, said, just summarizing it, that and to partially answer what Sayyid Shehzad had asked, when we focus ourselves on the result and the consequences of not achieving those results, the problem of procrastination gets solved automatically, because as the example about missing a flight that Faisal is given, missing a flight is a big consequence. The bigger the consequence, the bigger the negative consequence of leaving something becomes a bigger motivator for doing something that we tend to procrastinate. So when we are habitual of procrastinating things, we might be missing out on the clarity about the negative consequences that it may bring. So one of the very, very important solution to overcoming procrastination is to start thinking about the results. The more result-oriented your thinking becomes, the more clarity you get about negative consequences of not achieving those results. And just for when your focus on those negative results is stronger, your motivation to do the things becomes stronger. So let's take, sorry, you were saying something.
I just wanted to add something that one of the, acknowledging and realizing what the consequences are is important. And there is one additional step which you can take as well to limit procrastination. And that is called temptation bundling or piggybacking. So in temptation bundling or piggybacking, what you do is you bundle something that you love doing with something that you don't like doing. So let's assume that you need to have a meeting with a colleague that you really don't like. You dislike this person, but you must have this meeting to make the project go to the next stage. You could have that meeting at your favorite restaurant. So you are making it appealing to you, doing something that you really dislike doing. You're making it more attractive. So you're more inclined to do that. So you're finding a bit of a balance between self-interest and having to do something for an outcome. So I just wanted to share that as well, because that is another very powerful strategy, temptation bundling or piggybacking to deal with procrastination. I see Coach Nair's hand is up. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to address one of the points that you mentioned that is written here. In fact, a question here. Ms. Aisha says, my question was about planning in a second, poor execution, something that I struggle with. I understand conscious realization is the answer. Please elaborate. So conscious realization, Coach Faisal has already elaborated, means you need to think about the consequences. And this is a conscious realization. This is what it means, that if I did not do that, what will be the consequences? And if I did do that, what will be the positive consequences? So this is conscious realization. I'll come back to the point. What is the solution? Solution is, for instance, planning. When it comes to planning, when we plan in a second, in a fraction of a second, and it takes a long time to execute, let's write. Write means in the sense that this is the task to be executed. How much time do you think this will do? So in some of our workshops, we have done this exercise. Guys, imagine this is a corporate workshop going on. So guys, tell me how long does it take to reach office every day in the morning? Huh? So this is a team, and they said, well, it takes us around 30 minutes. All right, so approximately 30 minutes it takes. Yes, some says 40 minutes, and so on and so forth. All right, now guys, let's do a breakup of this exercise. And this is, I'm addressing this question by Ms. Aisha. So then how do you break down the task further? All right, getting ready. Now you're ready at home. Now from your main entrance to your car, how long does it take? Start the car, leave the car on idling for another 30 seconds. Then you take the car out of the building or out of your house or whatever. Then you reach, how long does it take on the first traffic light, and so on and so forth, till you reach the office. Then you park the car, then you take the elevator and you reach your workstation. Break down the task step by step. And people do this in this exercise. Now, after this exercise, we ask them to add them together. Now, when they add these small little tasks together, they exceed, usually they overshoot by 20 to 30%. So then we tell them, guys, imagine this is a small task that you have been doing every day in, day out, you do this, and even then your time estimations are not precise. How about the other things? So coming back to the point, Ms. Aisha, that when we estimate the times, we need to break down the activities to a smaller level, because as I mentioned, human minds can see the things accomplished in a fraction of a second, but human minds tend to overlook the smaller steps. So when you break down the steps, write down the amount of time that's going to take, and inshallah this will help. Whoever you raise his hand, you raise your hand.
Yes, so adding to this, planning in a second, that in itself is a reason for setting yourself up for procrastination. Proper planning and then followed by proper execution is what reduces procrastination, what helps in overcoming procrastination. One of the very important aspects, or one of the basic underlying problem that why we procrastinate is the urge for perfectionism. So when something is not attainable, something which cannot be achieved, that is perfection. Humans cannot achieve perfection, right? We all agree on that. So when we set ourselves, or when we plan ourselves to achieve perfection, we are definitely likely to fail. And when we fail, failure, inability to accept failure in itself brings in lower motivation for doing things. So how to overcome that? Overcoming perfectionism related procrastination is, the first step is to accept failure, learn to accept failures, because failures are not something bad in life. Failures are opportunities. Same goes for organizations. Organizations, usually the progressive organizations, they do not have negative consequences for their employees when they fail. That's why they are progress better than the other organizations. So accept to fail, adjust your expectations from something we call perfect to excellent. That's one of the ways we can overcome procrastination.
I would like to suggest that at this stage, we also explore why procrastination is a very relevant and important topic in the corporate context. Because we have quite a few people on the call from the corporate world. Some of us have shared our challenges in delaying some tasks. So I'll kick that one off. And like, one of the things that I learned through my career in the construction industry, one of our really effective project directors used to say that a 2-day delay from us equates to a 15-day delay for the team, because teams need time to mobilize. And if you procrastinate on something, it always has and I think this is something that's true in almost any context, that procrastination has a compound effect down the road. And in a corporate context, it can impact your colleagues, it can impact your contractors, it can impact your client as well. So I think it's important to also perhaps have a bit of a discussion on this, that what have we seen in our work? And I would also encourage the audience members to share anytime they have faced the consequences of procrastination, or they believe procrastination from their side has resulted in negative consequences at work. So it'd be great to hear some stories from the audiences as well. I see there's yeah, please go ahead, say it, Chirag.
There is one reason for my delays of task, that whenever I want to do something, when I go to my desk, I see it's not clean. I start cleaning that one. Then I think my papers, they are not in the file. I put that in the file, and then I think there is something I have to arrange before starting my work, and this always delays me. And the actual task or the work is always delayed because of this habit.
There's
So I
one
think
thing.
this is one of the reasons. As one of the child, when he want to study something, he said, oh, my bag is not in a correct way, or my books are not in the perfect setting, or my pencils are not sharp. So I think the reason behind my procrastination is one of these reasons.
That sounds like perfectionism. Saad, what do you think?
Yeah, I think so, because I always do the work in a perfect manner, or I don't do it. This is my habit: do it in a perfect manner or leave the work.
So, Shahzad, can you spare some time outside of this Majlis, and we can talk one-on-one about this?
Maybe.
So what we will do is our team will share a link in the chat box. Just fill out a very small questionnaire. It will hardly take 2 or 3 minutes from you. And then when I receive that questionnaire, I'll set up a call with you and we will discuss this one-on-one, inshallah.
Okay, Jazakallah khairan. Thanks a lot.
There's a request in the chat to repeat the question. So the question that was asked is, it's an opportunity for those on the call to share an instance where you have experienced the consequences of procrastination, or perhaps you yourself have procrastinated and you have witnessed the compounding consequences of that down the road to others, within your organization or elsewhere. It's an opportunity to share and have a conversation with us. Okay, I've seen a song. So Tamana Hassan says, procrastinated sewing my clothes and I didn't have anything to wear. So the question that comes to my mind upon reading that is what was the reason behind the procrastination? Based on all the discussion that we've had today, I think most of our audience members should be able to identify to some degree, or connect the dots. Like, so why was that? Why were you procrastinating? I think that's the question that comes to mind.
So much effort in making mistakes.
That's
an interesting one, Saad.
It's a combination. I think making mistakes to me is coming back to the perfectionism point, right? Is that fear of failure? If it's not perfect, then it takes too much effort. Is all about that drive to act. Is the drive to act greater than the drive to delay? Because if something is worth having, then even if it takes efforts, if it's in our interest, we will make that effort. But if it's not worth having, if we don't perceive it as worth having, then we won't go the extra mile for it. What do you think?
Exactly. So I have a small question, Saad, and maybe then everybody has something to say. Is procrastination always a negative habit, or can we see any positive benefits or any positivity to procrastinating things that might not be needed at that time and may act as a distractor?
Whenever I lost your sentence, please say it again because I'm busy in the chat.
My question was that is procrastination always a bad thing, a negative thing to do, or does it have any positive consequences as well?
You want me to answer, or you're looking for someone else to answer?
Anybody can answer. I see a hand. Yes, Miss Aisha has a raised hand.
I have an idea of a positive effect of procrastination. It could be like for me personally, I get obsessive about certain things that either I want to buy or, something that I think I need. But if I wait long enough, I can realize that, okay, I can, make do without it.
That's interesting.
That's a good example.
So yeah, I would like to share something over here. There's an American contemporary time management guru called David Allen. David Allen has a book called Getting Things Done. And he says that a lot of time that we spend or a lot of time that we waste in doing something that we don't really need to do. And a lot of money is also spent in buying something that we don't really need to. So what he advises instead, he says that if you want to buy something rather than buying impulsively, what you need to do is that post it in your folder, which pops up, let's say, week from now. So If you feel after a week possible again, and if you feel that still you need to buy, go and buy it. But if you feel after 1 week that you need not buy that anymore, then you need not, then you can just spend, save your money. So this is what he says, and this is, I could relate to your thing. Means, as you mentioned, you're obsessed about something. That means your impulse is pushing you to buy and buy and buy. But if you're able to control that impulsive decision making, and it's not procrastination, it is a conscious decision making that if you really want to buy, you could buy it after a week as well. But if you bought it right away, that means it is impulsive decision making. This is what I could see over here. So just a moment crossed my mind, and I thought of sharing with that with you. But thank you so much for your question, because our Majlis becomes lively and interactive when people open up their mic and speak. So thank you.
Great. There's another question in chat. Abdul Khan has asked that kindly suggest few things about how to overcome the delaying tactics problem. So Saad, let me share 3 and then you can take the mic. One of the most effective ways to understand the reasons that why we procrastinate, and then obviously when we understand them, we can overcome them, we can plan to overcome them, is to be aware of your habits and your behaviors. Like if somebody is habitual in delaying things or putting them forward, or in other words, if someone is habitually lazy and he is aware of his laziness, then there are chances that he would more easily overcome the challenge of procrastination. There are certain behaviors that need external help, external professional help, like for example, working with a coach. So if that is needed, be open and be fair, be honest to yourself, and seek external help in overcoming the challenges that you're facing through while procrastinating different things. Another thing that you can do is set realizable goals. Do not go for perfection. Do not strive for something that you cannot achieve. Rather, set up small goals. Set up some easy to achieve successes for yourself, and in the process, you will get more and more motivated towards doing more and more things. Anything else, Saad, that you would like to add?
I see Coach Faisal's hand is up. I think he wants to share something with the same.
Yeah, actually, one of the things that I have seen working with many people is that you become ruthless to yourself and you start sharing you open yourself to external accountability. Either it's a coach, friend, wife, or anyone. You open yourself and you start displaying and sharing your plans in public so that people can come and they can ask you, oh, okay, Saad, you are working on that weight loss goal. So how it's going? Because when we have plan, we make plan for ourselves and we keep it to ourselves, we are less committed to those plans, and those tasks seldom get completed. But when we open ourselves to external accountability, we remain more committed, because then our reputation is on the line. Okay, and so we ensure that we come out and look like a success in the eyes of others. So it really helps you to ditch procrastination and start doing things that you even don't like. And one of the books that we were talking about before, and I'll recommend those who wants to work on their procrastination, is Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. It is a very practical book. It has certain straightforward suggestions about how to prioritize your work and how to start your day to avoid procrastination and remain committed and motivated throughout the day.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Coach Faisal. And I think that what you just said really ties back to the whole of what behavioral psychologists have identified as time inconsistency, in that you have your present self and all the actions are taken by your present self, but planning happens for the future self. So there's that time inconsistency, because the present self always wants immediate consequence or immediate gratification. So when you start working with accountability partner like a coach, that consequence becomes more immediate. It's no longer 4 years down the line or 2 years down the line. For example, in a weight loss goal, a coach will ask you on a week-by-week basis or even on a daily basis, are you achieving your goal? And it makes the consequence immediate. So the present self it feels compelled to act because it responds to immediate gratification and immediate consequences. That, I think that ties really neatly with that. Okay. All right. So let's see if we have any other. I would like to also suggest a book here. So we have one suggestion, which is Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. And for those of us who are trying to establish good habits and are struggling with establishing habits and are procrastinating, I think Atomic Habits by James Clear is a very easy to read and fun and interesting book that helps you establish habits easily. And in fact, tackle some of the key problems of procrastination, and that how can you make starting a habit more easier? How can you make it more attractive? And one of the concepts in there is it should be break it down to the smallest possible step, which should not take more than 2 minutes to execute. It's like called the two minute rule. And if you can take the first smallest step within 2 minutes and start to build on that, then you can compound and you can beat your procrastination. So at this stage, let's just check quickly if we have any other questions, and then I think it's a good idea to do a bit of a recap of what we have discussed over the past hour. What do you think, Coach Umar?
Yep, that's a good idea. Just last few words. There's a psychologist by the name of Piers Steele. He conducted a study about university students and suggested that the best tool or best technique to overcome procrastination is better time management. And by better time management, he suggested that everyone should do some research on their self, think about themselves, as everybody mentioned, spend some time with themselves and identify their power hours. Those power hours is the time where everybody is the most productive, and use those power hours to achieve the maximum desired results so that you do not get into the trap of procrastinating things based on the fear of failure or fear of failing to achieve those results that you always want to achieve.
Great, thank you so much for sharing that, Coach Umar. So just to recap very quickly, in today's session, we have discussed what is procrastination, what does it look like, and we also discussed a little bit. We had some stories from our audience members as well as our coaches, where we shared instances of how procrastination looks in real life context in the professional and personal life. And then we got into why do we procrastinate? What are the reasons for procrastination? And we delved deep into that, into what are the possible reasons that we procrastinate. And then we got into the negative effects as well. So we discussed, what challenges do people face as a result of procrastination in their professional and their personal lives. And then throughout this session, we have touched on strategies to overcome procrastination, which include many strategies such as better planning, better goal setting, having an accountability partner, such as a coach, and various others. The recording of this session will be available on Facebook. It is being streamlined and there will be a recording available. So please share it and please give us your feedback on the session as well. And Coach Umar, would you like to add anything?
It's time to wind up. Well, I would like to thank everyone for their time today, and especially for those who participated. It always gives us a pleasure when our audience participates with us. And as Saad mentioned, please give us your feedback, your valuable feedback. If you want us to talk about any specific topic, please mention that in your feedback, and we will consider that for our next corporate meetup. If you would like to talk to any one of us, just fill out the self-discovery form, and we will give you a one-on-one free coaching session and we'll spend some time with you.
Thanks,
It's
everyone.
about the time, Sam.
It's time to wrap up. Thank you all for joining us, and we will see you at the next corporate Majlis. Thank you all.